Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today is TNT's Intuition. This is their fourth album, released February 21st, 1989, so it's 35 years old today. So I'm a big TNT fan. I first discovered them on the Telltales album. It got good reviews. It was the era of guitar heroes, and it said that this guy Ronnie Latecro was spectacularly good. My brother bought the Telltales album and pretty much instantly into it. So there was a big anticipation about this album, and I would say at the time, although I didn't think it was quite as good as Telltales, it didn't disappoint because it had an abundance of great tracks. So the band got back with the producer Bjorn Nezo, I think. Can't pronounce it, sorry. Kind of never really heard of this guy do anything else. He did the three TNT albums from Nights of the New Thunder. He gets great production. This is a great sounding record. It cost $275,000 back then. You know, that's easy, about $600,000-700,000 in today's money. I mean, this is why the album sounds so good from back then. It's also the problem for the bands because you have to sell so many records to recoup, and that would be a band like TNT's undoing. But the band's all in really good form. Diesel Dahl doesn't play on this album. It's a guy called, Kenneth Odlin is his stage name. He actually used to be in the Stage Dolls. I just read something before that people think there's drum machine on this album, and I'm not sure. It certainly could have been drum machine. It's certainly that era, but it doesn't sound hugely drum machinist to me. But it is a good sound, whatever they've used. So yeah, it really picks up. This is a bit more commercial than Tell No Tales. Obviously TNT are looking for a hit. You got to have hits back then. So the album starts off with A Nation 3, which is a little piece. It's kind of like an introduction to them, like a little kind of fanfare, I suppose. I really like this. It's kind of showing their Queen influence. Cool sort of epic track guitars from Ronnie Latecro, only 1:14. And then it goes into the first track proper, which is called Between the Tigers. Now this is just a cracking track. It's got a fantastic kind of really syncopated riff from Ronnie Latecro. Very unique, and then on the chorus, he does these kind of harmonic, pinched harmonic bends, really unique, and that's really something that comes out on the album is Latecro's rhythm work. He plays great riffs on this. The rhythm guitar sounds great, but sometimes he's very subtle. He's quite happy just to kind of play single note lines. On some tracks it sounds like, the guitars aren't just double tracked, he's maybe added in extra tracks. It's a really thick sound, but it's very, very loads of clarity, loads of accuracy. Yeah, it's great vocal on this, great kind of keyboard part in the chorus, and an insane guitar solo. So this solo actually caught the ear of George Lynch, I remember at the time, and he was like, who's this Ronnie Latecro guy? He's awesome. Zach Wild was a fan. Always been a cult guitar hero, really, Latecro, never getting the mainstream recognition of other players of the time, but people in the know knew like a unique voice in the shred era. Next track up is Tonight I'm Falling. This was kind of like one of the singles off the album. Really good commercial pop metal track with a great arrangement, 3 minutes 55. Great vocal from Tony Harnell. And again, a superb solo from Latecro, maybe his best on the album, this mixing sort of melody. And there's little harmony feature parts which he gets from his Brian May influence. So unusually for players of the time, Ronnie Latecro's two biggest influences were George Harrison and Brian May. So you can hear the sort of George Harrison in his kind of melodic sensibilities at the time, and of course the multi-tracked harmonies of Brian May. Like speaking for myself as a guitarist, when I've done solos, I've found as I've looked at solos I've done, and I'm not comparing myself to like something like Ronnie Latecro here, but one thing I've kind of copied off him is putting little harmony parts, little feature parts, bringing a part out in a solo, and that's what Latecro does. He creates these mini little symphonies and things, and amazing. Then you've got End of the Line, which is a big power ballad. Now in the sleeve notes of this album, on the Rock Candy reissue, Tony Arnell said, oh, you know, they should have released Northern Lights, and that could have been a hit. And then he says this with End of the Line. I'm not so sure. It's looking at it objectively now, a song like End of the Line, yeah, it's a big ballad, but it's not, and so is Northern Lights, but they're not like something like More Than Words or To Be With You by Mr. Big or Heaven Like Warrant or Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue. TNT have got this weird European, Scandinavian influence in the sound, and although their tracks are very commercial, they've got oddness about them, and maybe a band like this was never quite gonna get there. I think they would struggle to reproduce the sound live. I wouldn't some put in a thread that I heard they weren't that good live, and then when at some point when I watched them, they were good live. But I don't think Tony Arnell's a great frontman. He's a great singer, very good live singer. But the problem is they had so much layering with his harmony guitars and the backing vocals. You know, you'd be using backing tapes to reproduce that. I've an off-stage keyboard player as well, or maybe it's at the side of the stage. But anyway, End of the Line's a great track. Side 1 on the original album, it's a 10-track album, finished with Intuition as title tracks, 4 minutes 18. This is a great pop metal track. And the riffing part on this, I mean, you know, it's quite cliche, but that no one had really done this kind of, you know, chord sequence. You know, I think they were the first to do this, and this is Can't Stop Loving You by Van Halen, kind of copies this kind of riff and stuff like that, but they were the first to it. It's got a great solo. You can hear the backing vocals of Jolene Turner on this as well. Intuition, one decision at the end. Again, it says on the sleeve notes, but I was reading more about it. He came in, he did a lot of backing vocals, he spent quite a bit of time. So I was listening out for those, and you can clearly hear his voice. Yeah, the one thing about this album, it's slightly longer than the Town of Tales album was only like 31 minutes, 32, but 3 of the tracks on that were very short instrumentals, and this has got 2 shorter pieces, but it's a bit longer. But the next album, TNT, would start doing longer tracks, but their modus operandi was always to deliver tracks that were kind of under the 4-minute mark. Just looking at this, actually, there's only 2 tracks and the 2 shorter tracks are under 4 minutes, all the rest, so they're starting to get a bit longer now. So Shine, look, side 2 open with Forever Shine On. This is another like showstopper album, great riff, insane guitar solo, great pop chorus, great vocal from Tony Arnell, great breakdown before the solo. Again, just with a weird change at the end of the chorus, a weird modulation. Again, probably a bit too unusual to go mainstream to me. Morty Black, the bass player, gets a co-writing credit on this. Then you got Learn to Love. This is probably the weakest track on the album, or second weakest. I would say the next track's just, there's a dip, which is probably why I think the Telling the Tales album's better. I think it's more consistent, although when this is good, it's spectacularly good. But Learn to Love's a nice track. Lovely little part from Ronnie Latecro playing so the G and B string, you know, little dyads, another really cool solo. You know, it's a pleasant song. Next track's Ordinary Lover. This has Ronnie on vocals, a little comedy track, so showing the Queen influence, you know. Seaside Rendezvous, I don't know, you know, those kind of tracks Queen put on the Freddie sort of style ones. Obviously a bit of Van Halen influence as well on this. It's quite a good fun, the track. I don't love it, but it's just quite amusing. Then you got Take Me Down, Fallen Angel. Again, I was kind of veering between, is this the weakest track or is it Learn to Love? It's probably got a better chorus, this. Just went online before and saw a comment, and it quite correctly realised, and I checked, yeah, the backing vocals are pitched up at the end, so it uses early pitching to take the backing vocals up a tone at the end, and it sounds very artificial, but it's a good track. Then the album finishes with a kind of really epic, weird track called Wisdom, again showing TNT's strangeness. This is in 3/4 time, it's proper waltz time, it's got a kind of a dark, I sort of see it as a dark Norwegian influence in it. You know, again, that weird Scandinavian influence they have. It's got a really gothic verse, but a big epic chorus. Great Ronnie multi-track lines, and he does an insane solo where he speeds up. He uses something called a quarter stepper guitar on this album. I'm not sure, maybe the solo to this, the intro, maybe uses the quarter stepper. So instead of being in half steps, it's in quarter steps. So half step's a fret, a semitone, a quarter step is half that. So the way to do that on a guitar, normal guitar, is just a bend, a blues type bend where you bend sharp, but don't go the full semitone or tone. You just go a quarter step, and it just, you know, you can even bend an eighth of a step, you know. But eighth of a half step. Sorry, yeah, not a step. Fractions. But this is great track. The solo's mad, and he just does a weird backwards bit in the middle. It's just very strange. But the track, I always liked it, but it's really grown on me. So it's a really good track. So that's, it has a bonus track on the album called Electric Dancer for the Japanese first print bonus track. I actually started listening to that before. You know, it sounds like it's sort of a polished up demo. That maybe has drum machine on. I don't think it's as good as the rest of the stuff on the album. But then again, maybe if I'd heard it at the time, I wasn't aware of it, to be honest. I just hadn't gone down a rabbit hole that way. But TNT kind of peak commercially with this. I think this is their biggest selling album, but it just doesn't sell enough. It only makes 115 in the US charts, 19 in Sweden, 3 in Norway. Yeah, that's always been their bread and butter, but you know, you had to be breaking in the States. I think they went to Realised Fantasies album next. Is that on the same label? No, it's on Atlantic, so they got a different deal. But the problem with this album was it is good, but it's just it's not polished enough. TNT have a big polished sound with orchestrated guitars. And again, this album's like 50 minutes, 10 tracks, and the songs are getting longer. So I do like it. Jolene turns back in vocals again, but it just doesn't. It's not the standard of the previous thing, and then they kind of come back the late 90s, and it's not really until they do My Religion in 2004, comes out March 2004, where you get that kind of classic TNT sound back. What would I mark this album out of 10? It's an 8.5. It's tipping a 9. I mean, Tell the Tales would be a 9+ to me. You know, I'm kind of edging towards a 9. That kind of drop on side 2. When it's great, you know, like side 1's just uniformly great, and Interference and Shine On, you know, those first 6 tracks off the bat are fucking mega. You know, it's a great pop metal album, and I strongly urge checking it out. When I was listening to it, I think the thing that came across to me, I just felt very lucky that, you know, I was of an age in 1989 where I could go to a record shop, buy the latest TNT album, be excited by the guitar playing, not be disappointed. And, you know, the hair metal era, pop metal, has its critics, but he did produce some great music. I just think it's the image and the MTV-ness of it all kind of undermines that. So yeah, check out TNT Intuition. Remember, share and subscribe if you like these reviews, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye now.